we're in trouble here, champ. There's more bad guys than we have bullets. Just in case we get killed, I wanted to tell you, you have the biggest dick I've ever seen on me.
Get out of here, man. Shit, I'm saying.
What up, party people? Bobo here with BrassReel Brothers. Thanks for tuning in for some more popcorn. Man, I had so much fun doing the Karate Kid trilogy that I wanted to stay in that martial art vein. So I'm gonna do 3 more films. They're not connected to each other, but they all came out either in the late 80s and early 90s, the time where I was hugely into martial arts as a kid. So it's the year 1991. The mega blockbuster Terminator 2 had come out, that Peter Pan movie Hook, Child's Play 3, Freddy's dead! You forgot the Power Glove! All those movies obviously were all over the place, but I was a movie nerd back then like I am today, so it was just an awesome year for movies. There was also a time where you had a lot of things going either straight to HBO or straight to video. And the one that I was obsessed with and all my buddies were obsessed with, we watched this 1,000 times. Showdown in Little Tokyo. Directed by Mark L. Lester, same guy who did Commando. Starring Dolph Lundgren, Brandon Lee, and the ungodly hot Tia Carrere. So as a kid, I used to stay up late all the time, weeknights and weekends. Sometimes on the weekends with my buddies, we'd have sleepovers, and we'd always be waiting for that HBO or Cinemax movie that would have some TNA or some skin. And if you were a boy in the 80s or early 90s, you did too. Don't pretend like you didn't. For us 80s kids, that was a national pastime. But that's how late one night I discovered Showdown in Little Tokyo. Oh man, I love this movie. It is so awesome, such a sign of the times, such a depiction of the late 80s, early 90s. And as I mentioned just a second ago, movies were starting to come out elsewhere besides theaters. They were coming out straight to video or on HBO or Cinemax or Showtime, but mostly HBO. And they were hit or miss. Sometimes they were just trash and garbage, and then sometimes they were pretty good. This is one that I'm sure made it to theaters in some places, but where I was living in Louisiana, I only saw it on HBO and on video. And believe it or not, it took me a long time to find this thing on DVD. It wasn't like an easy find. It's pretty rare. So I'm sure you all know Dolph Lundgren. He's the badass in Rocky IV that plays Drago. I always loved Dolph, especially when he was in Universal Soldier with Van Damme. Yeah! I always thought he should have gone a little further. He had an awesome look to him. He was obviously jacked and this just gargantuan dude. I don't thought he was a good enough actor. He wasn't Oscar award winning or anything, but neither was Arnold or Van Damme or Seagal.
You told me that your friends were killed by local cops. That really doesn't explain to me how you ended up in a trunk next to a bag of cash.
I'll give it to Stallone. Stallone's got some acting chops. But Dolph had everything going for him. Apparently he's also like a genius. He was like this physicist or something. And he made plenty of his movies, but a lot of them were those B-grade movies that, again, straight to video, straight to HBO. But I've always loved watching Dolph and everything, and this, to me, was probably his biggest starring role outside of Universal Soldier. Rocky IV, yeah, he was in it, but he wasn't starring. He was just that villain that you would see occasionally. He was just there to get you scared. And then you have Brandon Lee in there, which, man, poor Brandon Lee, that guy, terrible curse, following after his father, Bruce Lee. I'm sure you all know this, but he was killed on the set of The Crow. There's actually something you can watch on Shudder. It's a streaming service for horror films, and there's a series on there called Cursed Films. It's a documentary about all these different films that were basically cursed or felt cursed during the time they were in production, involving The Poltergeist. The Omen is one of the episodes, but The Crow is one of those episodes with Brandon Lee, and you get to hear the entire story, including interviews from people that were there and saw it. But yeah, he got killed in the middle of that movie, and they had to finish making it without him. But this is one of the ones he was starring in as he was up and coming, and man, he was a badass. And you see it in this movie. You can see that he had a lot of potential. You could see Bruce Lee's fighting style in his fighting style, how it was just effortless. He could do moves just left and right. And that was the beauty about Brandon Lee. Not only did he have this awesome look and he was an up and coming actor, but he actually physically could do all this stuff that a lot of people couldn't. As soon as this movie opens up, you get this credit scene with this camera kind of fading in and out of this dude's tattoos. They're all these like Asian cult / gang tats. And the music is just so early 90s. I couldn't love it anymore.
Hey, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1,
Rewatching this today, I felt like that little kid that was staying up late watching HBO movies. But as soon as the credits end and you see Dolph Lundgren in that first opening scene, it's completely showing you in a couple minutes what this movie's gonna be like. He's busting in on this illegal fight that's going on in Little Tokyo, and it's just all these unrealistic scenarios from the 80s and 90s that would never happen, that were so unbelievable. But he's a cop named Kenner, and I love it when he's talking to the guy immediately when he busts in. Not tonight, can I?
Not tonight, can I?
My buddies and I used to say that all the time and laugh our asses off. Kenner looking for this guy named Tanaka. And right away you see this movie's just got a bunch of B-listers from the 90s in it. Like Tatsu from Ninja Turtles is in there. He's like the gang boss, or like the captain. Oh, and pretty soon we see that Tanaka is Shang Tsung from Mortal Kombat. Holy shit! But of course, immediately it turns into a shootout because he's busting up the fight. And I love this girl's scream you hear immediately. It's so over the top. It's like the bastard cousin to the Wilhelm scream. Everybody's getting shot up doing the 80s, 90s gunshot dance. And we get to see Dolph Lundgren do a jump kick over a car. Damn, that's a big dude jumping high. Should have been in the NBA. Who knows? It's Dolph Lundgren. Maybe he was. He's already a genius.
He does. He does.
And we get introduced to Brandon Lee's character when he's supposed to be meeting Dolph Lundgren waiting at this little breakfast place, and that Asian gang comes in with Tatsu and starts harassing the place. Typical 90s cop meetup scene, and their relationship's the same too. They don't like each other in the beginning, but they end up liking each other, and next thing you know, they're best friends by the end of the movie. Definitely in the vein of Lethal Weapon, but with martial arts. Which, by the way, I have to mention, I love in all these old school movies that everybody knows martial arts. So they catch one of the perps who was harassing this shop, and Dolph's character sees he's got all these tats on him. So basically, Dolph Lundgren and Brandon Lee are spending the whole movie trying to figure out what this Asian gang's doing, terrorizing the city, and there's something underlying going on. Dolph Lundgren recognizes the tattoos on all the guys in the gang. We get a flashback scene where Dolph's parents were killed by Tanaka. The movie does a good job of like interweaving that old like 80s cop feel, but with some old school Japanese samurai warriors. But this movie had so many great things as a kid that me and my friends either waited for, memorized the lines for. Some nudie scenes we couldn't wait to see. That's another thing. This movie was an HBO type Cinemax film. It was gory, it was bad language, there was plenty of nudity. In fact, there was this one scene that my buddies and I always used to love watching where you see this one girl at this party, and this one girl's out there all getting high. They're selling ice. Turns out that's what this Asian gang's up to. They're making this drug called ice. It makes meth look like decaf. Apparently that girl was informing the cops, so they take her back to this room with Tanaka, and all these dudes are watching, and he starts to strip her down. And I remember me and my friends being like, "Ooh, look at this, we're getting to see so much nudity." And all of a sudden, he cuts her head off with a samurai. And it's weird, because this scene makes me feel three different ways. One, it was making me feel all excited as a little kid because I was seeing boobies. Two, that gets ruined immediately when he cuts her head off, and it's just like, ah! And then three, it's hilarious, the sound effects they use for this thing. My buddies and I used to laugh so hard at that. So it's just like, oh, look, she's hot. Oh, that was hilarious. Not only is that weird feeling and fake looking all at the same time, there's this other hilarious part where this guy gets crushed in a car. It's like at this salvage yard and they're crushing this car while this guy's in it. And you can totally see when they cut straight to the dummy. It's hilarious.
Oh, please, I'm pleading. I'll do anything you want. Get me out of here. I'm pleading. I'll do anything you want.
Hilarious. I mean, it's not even like you guys almost got away with it. It's a complete shift. They do the same thing in that movie Casino with De Niro by Scorsese.
Kind of love I had.
We get introduced to Tia Carrere's character at this awesome club where they're serving sushi on naked girls, and Tia Carrere is singing the funniest version of Slow Hand I've ever heard in my life.
Oh, God, yeah. You're right.
Turns out she was close friends to the girl that got killed. And of course it wouldn't be an 80s or 90s movie club scene without a brawl bursting out. And it's awesome. There's all kinds of team-up action going on between Dolph and Brandon. Ultimately they get outnumbered in this brawl. They get taken to the back of the club where Tanaka is. And that's where Dolph realizes this is the guy that killed my parents. Classic! But Tanaka's going too far now. He's getting sword happy. Not only did he chop off that poor girl's head, then he chops off Ronnie Dunn's hand. I just realized this rewatching this today that the guy that cuts his finger off and then Tanaka just stabs is Tommy Lee from Best of the Best. Man, it's like that guy almost had a career. Something that I've always loved about these 80s and 90s cop films is that the cops, more often than not, decide to just go rogue and nobody stops them. It's like, shouldn't these guys be clocking in and checking in with their boss after a while? But no, they just decided to go on this rogue mission, a personal vendetta, because Tanaka's the one that killed Dolph's parents. They end up saving Tia Carrere's character because apparently she's one of Tanaka's women. Not only does he rescue her from Tanaka in this awesome 90s scene, but he lifts up a car. And of course drives away and shoots the undercarriage so it can blow up. Duh, that's what we all would do. This movie's got so many great moments to where they're just using the storyline to build up to another fight scene or another shootout scene. Because right after that, when they go to this bathhouse where they find Tanaka and all these people, and they do the same thing in there, we get a very unneeded but extremely welcome montage scene. They go back to this awesome Netflix and chill pad that Dolph's built up. It's like this Asian architecture place that's badass. And it wouldn't be a 90s buddy cop action film without a little sex scene. Man, as a kid, I was so pumped. I was like, ooh, Tia Carrere naked. And then later on, I found out it was a body double. Gah! Snap of a finger. Dream shattered. Anyways. It quickly shifts right back into gear of the action film, and all the Asian gang guys have secured their location now. They figured out where they are, and they're all infiltrating the house. And then this is where the most confusing part of the film happens.
Just in case we get killed, I wanted to tell you, you have the biggest dick I've ever seen on a man.
Look, I'm just as secure with myself as the next guy. You'll hear me all the time being like, damn, that dude's jacked. Oh, I'm cool with being like, hey, that's a good looking dude. But there's certain things like this you just don't say to each other. It's just not a casual compliment to make. Anyways, I always thought that was weird back then and thought it was weird again now when I was watching it. And all this is leading up to the final act, which is great. Leading up to them invading the brewery where they're making all the drugs. Brandon Lee has a showdown with Tatsu, drops him right into a beer vat where he drops his lighter and it explodes. I guess beer's flammable. And Dolph has his showdown with Tanaka in the middle of the street. And I love it. Not a cop to be seen. There's gunfire. They're having a sword fight in the middle of the street. Dolph shish kebabs Tanaka to this fireworks spinning wheel.
This is for my parents.
Damn! Showdown in Little Tokyo is perfect for the 80s, 90s action movie fan who loves just old school badasses. I'm sure you've probably already seen it if you're watching this, but if you haven't, ooh, give it a shot. It's a huge bite of 90s nostalgia and it's a ton of fun. Well guys, thanks again for clicking on this video. That'll do it for this episode of Hot Fresh Popcorn. Hit the like button if you enjoyed it. And stay tuned for my next video with the under the radar martial arts phenomenon, the perfect weapon. Look for BrassReel Brothers on Facebook. Look for Bobby Williams on Facebook. You can find me on Twitter, BrassReel Bobby at BrassReel. And if you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button so you can help us make it to the top. And if life gives you lemons, make some hot fresh popping corn.
When we get done, we're gonna go eat fish off those naked chicks.